What's going on YouTube? This is Bullseye Nate back at the how-to videos. Today I'm going to be showing you how to change the blower motor in this York unit. So here's the model number somewhere. Here's the model number and the serial number is there. You can compare. But basically this is a variable speed fancy motor. And so what happens is they got some modules in here. You can see that, but they got some modules in here that helps the motor to run. You know, if it needs to run harder, it kicks up a notch. If it needs to run slower, you know, it kicks down. The only problem with that is, like I said, the modules go out and then the motor starts to get worn. And these are actually really expensive motors, so that is a downside to these motors, but they're supposed to be more energy efficient and all that because they don't run high if they don't need to, and they run low if they need to run low. So the first thing you want to do to change this thing out is you're going to turn off your breakers. So we got the breakers off, now we got the power off. I like to turn them off here at the unit as well. And so but what we're going to do is we're going to take off this cover in the top section because that is where the blower motor is. It's a fixed motor, so it attaches directly to the fan, and so it doesn't have a belt or anything like that. Alright, so we're going to remove this cover. You got 4 of those, and then you can see the blower right there. And then mounted to the right is the blower motor. And so this is what we're going to be changing. We're going to be pulling that sucker out and putting the new one in. Wiring's pretty easy. Basically all we're going to do is we're going to unplug this, which the big black one. I don't know if you can see that. And then we're going to plug this one back in to number 3, this white wire. And then of course the ground. So it's not going to be real hard. But what we're going to do is we're going to pull this out, and I'll show you how to do that next. Alright, so what we got here is, if you look at the blower itself, you see right up underneath here we've got 2 screws. It looks like there's a sliding track here. So I'm going to take these 2 screws out, and this whole thing should slide forward. Alright, so I got these 2 screws up here removed. As you can see, it's loose now. So I'm thinking it's going to slide here on this track, just slide all the way out. But before I slide it out, we're going to want to make sure we disconnect the wires because they're not going to be long enough. So make sure that if you're not familiar with how that goes and stuff, take a picture and make sure you put the wires back in the same place, because if you don't, the motor's not going to work right, and you could blow the module in the motor, which would not be good because these motors are so expensive, and that would not be covered under warranty because that is not a manufacturer error, that is an installation error. So we're going to pull this motor out, or this blower out, and disconnect these wires, and then I'll show you what to do next. Alright, so we got all the wires disconnected here on the motor, and I went to slide this out, and I got it all the way to the front here, and I noticed that this plate where we took the screws out of actually is going to block it right here from coming out. So if you can see, they have some screws right here that we can just loosen and actually slide that metal plate out. So that'll be no big deal. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that, and then we'll pull the blower motor out, or the blower out itself, and put it on the floor. Alrighty, now that we got the blower out of the unit itself, that's what it looks like, no blower in it. And again, just to reference back these tracks, it just slid right out. I actually didn't have to take this thing off completely. I was able to just loosen those and push it down, and that gave it enough room so that it could clear. So when we put this back in, we'll just put this back on and slide it up. You'll be able to see the marks where the previous screws were. So now what we're going to do is we're going to, so everything up to this point has been 5/16. So now I'm actually going to take my 3/8 nut driver. That's going to be these bolts that hold the motor to the blower itself. So I'm going to go ahead and take those out, and then we'll pull this out, and we're going to loosen these so that we can slide our new blower in. But first I'm going to go ahead and take this out. Quick note, the ground that is on this motor, it does not come with a new one on the new motor. So we're definitely going to have to take this ground off and put it back on the other motor. But it'll be real easy. I'll show you what to do. So first we're going to take these off and pull this motor out of the blower. Quick note before that I forgot to mention before taking apart the other side, you want to disconnect this bolt right here so that the motor will slide off of the fan here. So we're going to go ahead and loosen that, and then we'll take the other side of the motor off. All right, here we go. So we got the blower off of the motor shaft. If you'll notice, this is how it should look, but it's corroded, so it was kind of hard to get it off there. So basically what I did was use some penetrating oil to kind of loosen some of that rust and grime, and then I had to use a center punch like this to get it out, or if you have a puller or something like that, you could disassemble it. So, but the new one's nice and smooth as well. So basically the only thing we're going to do is we're just going to put the new one in, but what we're going to do is put the motor right next to it and make sure we put this bracket on the same spot on the new motor. So basically we're just going to loosen these, slide this off and slide the new one on, and make sure we get the same depth on the motor so that the shaft is long enough to run on the blower. Also what we're going to do is when we put this back in, you'll notice this is the bolt you had to loosen to slide it out. We're going to make sure we put the flat side of the shaft here for that bolt to come down and to lock onto that flat piece. So other than that, that's pretty much all you want to do, is just shove it through the shaft and make sure you get that in the right place so that the bolt is stuck right there on the flat spot to hold this fast to the blower itself. Alright, so we're going to change out the bracket and then put it back in the blower, and we'll be ready to install it back into the system. Alright, so this wound up being a 10 millimeter, so yours may be a 10 or somewhere right around that. And so basically what we did was we put this star looking thing, the mounting bracket for the blower motor, back on in the same exact position. Kind of what I did was, you see that line I made, and then I compared the two and put it on the same place in the motor and everything. So we're all good there. So now we're ready to put it back into the blower. The only other thing I need to do is I'm going to grab the ground wire off this old one and pop it onto this one, and then I'm going to pop this one back into the blower itself. Alright, so we got our fan and our motor back in the blower itself. So what I did was I lined up where the straight slot needed to be, facing this way, and I dropped it in. I'm going to secure these bolts, and then I'm going to turn it over and make sure I get the blower in the right place on the shaft. Alright, so we got our motor secured, and basically I flipped it up, and you can see I can move this back and forth. We're just going to try and get this centered right on the shaft where it needs to be. So we'll make sure the distance is the same over here as over here. And then we're going to put our pin back in where it goes. And once we get this tight, we'll be ready to put it back in the unit. Alright, so we got the blower back in, slid it in on the track. I went ahead and fixed this thing and tightened it down. So we're just going to push this all the way back, and we're going to push it back till this thing catches so that we can put these screws back in. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is reconnect the grounds. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we will also, remember, you got two grounds coming from the motor, one from the wire harness. Get those on here. Alright, it's kind of dark for you to see. Alright, so we got those grounds back in where they need to be on the blower. Alright, and then we're going to plug the plug for the motor back in. And then this is where you'll reference your picture if you didn't know where all this went, but this wire is going to plug into port number 3. Alright, so we're all good there. We got the wires. We're going to tighten these two up here, and we'll be ready to close it up. Alright, that feels good. We got it all tight. We got the bolts back in. We got all the wires plugged back in. This is where I like to just double check just to make sure, because you never know you might have missed something. So we got the wires, we got both the grounds on, one coming from the motor, we got the one running down here. Sorry it's kind of dark in there. And then we also have the white wire plugged into number 3 on the motor. The motor's nice and tight, everything's looking good. We got this all secure. So I think that is about it. And looks like we're ready to put the cover on. And once we get the cover back on, we can turn the breakers on, and we'll make sure that this blower motor is working good. Alright, so I got this front panel back on, so here comes the moment of truth, see if we know what we're doing or not. But we'll get all the breakers turned back on. We'll go over here to this thermostat, and we're going to go to on. And we're waiting. Clicked. And there it is, running smooth. If the blower wasn't on the motor right or something, you might hear some knocking or some tumbling or something like that. But basically everything's sounding good, looks good. While we were at it, we went ahead and threw a new filter on. As for the old motor, we might try and take it apart and maybe see what's wrong with it, see if it's broken, what's broken in it. Maybe experiment with it, because these module motors really are a pain with going out with the variable speeds and all that. But anyway, everything's good to go here. Thanks y'all for watching. Be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and I will see y'all next time. Bullseye Nate signing out.